This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Cotality. Restoration moves fast, and so should your technology. Cotality Restoration brings job data, communication, documentation, and reporting together in one place. Less chaos, more control, better outcomes. Cotality Restoration. Elevate every job. Find out more at cotality.com. Hey Restorers, welcome to a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today we're talking AI, which is such a big conversation happening in the industry right now. I cannot go to any industry event or have any conversation without AI being part of the dialogue. And this conversation specifically is going to weigh into kind of the customer service leaning side of AI and kind of answering your calls after hours, and then maybe getting into even helping you get paid and those kind of things, and how AI can kind of step into these pain points that a lot of contractors are feeling today. So I am very excited to have Nick Durbano, maybe co-founder and CRO of Distance, joining me today. So Nick, thank you so much for being here. Go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about Distance.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Nick. I'm one of the partners at Distance here, and my background has always been in technology. I've spent the better part of the last 20 years building and scaling technology companies in different categories. And we started Distance about 5-6 years ago, before AI was a thing, before LLMs and ChatGPT were kind of commonplace. So I like to say we were here before AI was cool. And really, our objective as an organization is to help contractors, folks in the restoration space, capture and convert more leads using technology. I think a lot of folks play around with AI, but they stop short of actually using it to achieve really tangible business results. And I think there's a lot of confusion in this space of like, all right, how do I actually go do that? And we've built a bunch of different tools and solutions across AI voice, chat, SMS that actually will, amplify your team's capability, right? So if you were to take a step back and say, hey, let me look at my sales funnel. Let me look at how I convert customers across my phone line, across my PPC campaigns, across my LSAs. And what you'll notice is that I'm not consistently capturing leads 24/7 across all channels consistently. There's always these moments in time, like perhaps my after hours is not as sharp, or maybe during a storm surge I can do better, or there are all these gaps in my sales funnel. How do we use technology to smooth those over and make your team a little bit more superhuman by leveraging some of this technology? So that's really what we do in a nutshell.
Perfect. So I'm curious what kind of pain points you were seeing, because you're in home services in general. So what were you seeing happening that made you think 5 or 6 years ago, even before AI was cool, there needs to be some solutions here?
Yeah, so we built my partner and I. We built in the e-commerce space for a very long time. So we
Yeah.
built really big businesses in that category. And back in the early 2010s, the 2008 era, um, the industry was actually very similar to the trades today, right? There were a lot of players. They weren't leveraging technology all that much. And then there was this boom that happened where all of a sudden, Shopify and some of these other solutions came into the table, and everyone got really good really quickly at using technology. And that meant that bigger companies were built, more profitable companies were built. And we've noticed a very similar thing happening in the trades today, right? A
Mhm.
lot of these organizations, and you can see that because private equity is jumping into the fray. There's,
Yep.
a lot of demand for buying and selling these companies. There's just a ton of opportunity to create more efficient versions of what existed 10, 15 years ago. And, we're excited to be part of that narrative.
Perfect. Okay. So, I talk a little bit about like the early, I'm curious to the early technology and how it's evolved to today. I mean, technology is arcing so fast, like you've talked about, especially
Yeah.
in home services now. There are so many, I mean, you go to any trade show in our space, and I'm sure it's that way in any
Yeah.
trade. There are so many new technology platforms out there. And I know restorers are getting to the point where they're like, I can't keep up and I don't know what to do. So what was kind of like the arc of where this started to where it is today, I guess?
Yeah. So when we started, we were really focused on building out the tools to allow you to communicate and engage with your customers more
Mhm.
efficiently, right? So how do we connect channels together? How do we create notifications? And as we were building that out, AI really started to percolate. So
Yep.
really early on in our life cycle, we said, hey, are we going to be another software company or are we going to be a native AI company, right? Because we have the opportunity to embed this technology at the ground level and be an AI native company rather than a solution that's tacking on because it's a very different component, right? If
Yes.
in today's, in the old way of doing things, if I wanted to tell my software to update something, I had to go click a little box and do a drop down and connect two dots together and basically inform the computer that I wanted to take a specific action. But with AI native companies, everything is done through natural language. So even in our settings, when you think about like, hey, how do I notify Michelle that she got a missed call or that she needs to call someone back or that there's a lead that she needs to take over? I do that in natural language. Like we are prompting the AI instructionally, not just in terms of what to do with customers, but how to treat those conversations, those tickets, those requests after the fact as well. So it's really, really exciting to build a company that is native to AI, which means everything that we do has AI at its core. And so, to answer your question, we started off by building those tools, embedding AI, and then over time built different component pieces. Because I'm a firm believer that in order to make these solutions really useful, you need to connect to different touch points in the customer lifecycle. It's not enough to just be a voice company or just be a
Yeah.
chat company. You can't have like 8 different tools talking to your customers, trained in 8 different ways, connecting to 8 different systems. That's really, really, really messy. And so, our vision, our objective is how do we bring all this in house and create a very simple solution that touches across the life cycle of a customer or a prospect so that you can engage with them, whether they're calling, texting, even after a job is done, which you kind of hinted to again at the end there, right? Well, like, well, how do I ask for reviews? How do I finish that job? How do I go out and really build a solution that is customer centric using AI? And so it's evolved quite a bit. Started with tools, and today we do a bunch of different channels from SMS, live chat, Facebook, Instagram, Google business profile, voice, inbound, outbound, the whole works. It's quite a lot.
So when you say like Facebook and LinkedIn and those kind of things, what is happening on those platforms with
Mhm.
AI?
Yeah. So think of, you're going to message a prospect on your site. They
Yep.
come in and, hey, I got a mold issue. I got a question. Is this something I need to take care of? Someone might call, someone might chat you right on your website. Someone, if you're advertising on Facebook for, for your services, we allow you to basically respond directly in the DMs. So our AI would be your responder. So someone messages you with a question or you're advertising and someone clicks on an ad, instead of directing them from the website, it's actually much more efficient to just start that conversation directly in Facebook, right? As soon
Yeah.
as we add a step to any sales equation, if I have you kind of click and go somewhere else and then click on something else, and every time we add a layer of friction, it reduces conversion rates.
Absolutely.
So whether you're on your Google Business Profile page, how do we instigate a conversation immediately? If you're on social media, how do we instigate a conversation immediately? If someone's calling you, how do we instigate a conversation as soon as possible, right? So phone rings twice, phone rings 3 times. If no one's picking it up, let's have the AI step in and intercept that call. We're all about removing friction from the sales process, right? And it's like no company is perfect. No company is like 100% answering every single lead instantly 24/7. So there's always room for AI to step in and help create better customer experiences.
Absolutely. How have you seen the AI component of this evolve in how it interacts with customers like 5 years ago versus how it can interact with them now? That's an
Oh,
area that has changed so significantly.
it's truly incredible. I remember when we started to really focus, especially in the restoration space, empathy is a really important part, right? People are calling in, their houses are being ruined, like people are crying. How does the AI deal with emotion, right? How does it deal with stressful situations? And it's been an incredible journey to see that evolution. Um, we had a woman who recently lost her husband, and had a flood like within 2 weeks of each
Oh,
other. And so she called in to one of our clients and she was crying. And the AI was so respectful. It was so good at handling the situation. It said something to the effect of, I forget her name, but, ma'am, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. Let's get this water issue sorted for you. And that's a very deft touch, like, bringing back to the matter at hand, but showing a little bit of empathy and making sure that their concerns and their emotions are heard. And so, that is not something we let's like train that AI to do. That is
Mhm.
something that is embedded at the core of the AIs that we build out. So, you could say they come default with some empathy built in, but these are all kind of twists and knobs that you have to pull to ensure that the solution works for the category.
So the biggest thing that well, not the biggest thing. One of the things that I hear from restorers is I cannot imagine letting AI play a larger role in my business. I could not imagine letting AI in any way interact with my customers, be customer facing, answer my calls, do any sort of outreach. What is your response to those type of people that are like, I can't imagine?
Well, I would say it really depends on what we're comparing ourselves to, right? If you're saying, Nick, I'm never going to replace my CSR with a robot, I actually don't necessarily disagree with you. I do think that you want to have like a human face answering the phones
Yep.
with your company. That's not our objective. Our objective is not to come out and replace humans, right? Like usually that's not the objective of an answering service either, right? Like that their job is there because there are gaps in your process, and we're going to solve those gaps, right? Now, what's the worst customer experience? I call and you don't answer, right? I call and it rings like 9 times.
Yeah.
That is wild, right? In today's day and age, it's not acceptable. It's not an acceptable outcome. And you are going to lose, especially in the restoration space, you know, 5-figure deals, maybe even 6-figure deals because someone didn't get to that phone quick enough. So I would say if you're comparing us to a missed call, right? That is a 100x better solution than the alternative. Now,
Yeah.
if that voice handles the conversation well, now we're not tricking customers into thinking that they're speaking to a robot. There's a way of handling these conversations, and this is why it's important to work with a vendor that actually understands the nuance of the category. You want to ensure that the conversation is, setting the right expectations with the customer. And then if the voice itself is really good, right? It
Mhm.
it sounds really crisp. There's not a
Yes.
lot of lag. It's like, oh wow, this is really kind of cool. You do get really great outcomes.
Mhm.
But when you're missing one of those three things, the voice is not good, the latency is not good, the script's not right. If one of those three pieces of the jigsaw puzzle is off, obviously the outcome's not going to be great. But when those three things are in play, it works wonderfully.
Works wonderfully. I had a question, it just left me. I was thinking about, so this is totally random, but it kind of fits in the conversation of AI answering us. So my kids
Yeah.
love and maybe you can relate to this. My kids love the Gatorade at Taco Bell, and Taco Bell drive-throughs have an amazing AI agent now. Like amazing. That sounds like a real person. And the last time my 6-year-old was in the back seat, and that thing answers accurately. It gets it right every single time, no matter how many times you try to like tweak or add or whatever, it gets it right. It responds like respectfully and nicely. And my 6-year-old was like, was that a person? She was so fast and she got everything right. And what's going on? And it's just funny to me, like how technology is moving. And sometimes I find myself almost preferring that to like the human interaction that can sometimes get it wrong. Like I find myself
100%.
sometimes trusting those more than the human interaction sometimes.
100%. Well, I'll give you another example, Michelle. We do work with clients in the restoration space that also own a carpet cleaning business, or they have like multiple. And so sometimes you'll call that number and it's like, hey, press 1 if you want to go here, press 3 if you want to go there. And you're just like sitting there, you're waiting for your number to be called. I think everyone wants to get to
The
where they're
worst.
going fast. So
Yes.
it's a much better experience to be like, hey, how can I help you? Right? Like,
Yeah.
are you calling about carpet cleaning? And then you could just in natural language be like, I think people have this misconception. I think the banking system, I'll be honest with you, did a disservice to AI voice, even though it's not AI. These answering services from like Bank of America from like circa 2005, where it's like press 5. I think that's like scarred everyone. Everyone
It
is so
has.
like scarred by those experiences. But
Yes.
this is such a different technology. So look, I mean, if you're skeptical about it, I think the best you owe it to yourself to kick the tires on it.
Mhm.
It's too important of a technology to kind of punt for 5 years from now,
Right.
when now you're significantly behind on your competition. Because the thing with AI is, if you do it today, you're still kind of early.
Yeah.
not that early, but you're still pretty early. You have a bit of a competitive advantage. But if you wait a year or two, now it's not like you don't have you're at a disadvantage, right? So the pendulum swings so fast, going from advantage mode to disadvantage. So I think it's in everyone's best interest to at least kick the tires on it, experiment with it, try it, take a few sales calls, talk to some vendors, and actually just get a sense of what the capabilities are. I think you'd be pretty impressed.
So what do you tell contractors, which could be in any space, that are like, I have way too many pieces of technology in my business. I cannot possibly add another one. How does this tack on? Where does it fit in with CRMs and job management and all those things? Where does
Yeah,
this merge into that?
it's a great question. So we integrate directly into the CRM or the field service management tool. So our objective is to, capture leads and information, create tickets, which has all that information inside of it, and then
Mhm.
push that information to different people in different systems. So, hey, this is a mold job, send it to Kathy and Jim, and also push it into Albie or, whatever the case may be. So we can capture the information, qualify leads, set expectations with clients, hot transfer it to dispatch or a human, also take the notes and push that information to different folks in the organization across SMS and email, also push it into your system. So it's a really kind of complicated set of actions that we're taking. It's not like we're just answering the phone, right? It's
Yeah.
there's a lot of data that's moving into different places and different systems to orchestrate an end-to-end solution here that works for your business. And that's really, really, really powerful when done right. Because all of a sudden now your systems are talking to each other. I think a
Yes.
lot of folks today is like they talk to someone, they still have to like hang up the phone, take the notes, put it into the system, click save. Like all that is automated, right? So now, you could spend time doing more important things, right? Things that are less repetitive in nature. Like let's let the technology handle the repetitive stuff and let's focus on building customer relationships, sales, things of that nature.
Absolutely. What is the point in the kind of customer journey where, say, there's a conversation going on that the AI knows, okay, this is the point where I need to get a human involved. Like,
Yeah.
what's the kind of that tipping point of shifting from, okay, I've helped to this point, now we need a human.
It's whatever you want.
Okay.
Going back to that earlier point where, it's not a box that says like if someone's yelling, transfer it. It is a box that says like describe how you'd want to transfer. Right. And
Okay.
so you can come in and say, Michelle, like anytime my mother calls, like make sure it's transferred to my number. Right. Anytime it's a mold job, transfer it live to dispatch. Anytime it's a commercial job, send it to Jim who runs the commercial department. So you could decide what the context is. And the AI is really good at understanding context. So it's like, oh, I understand that this is a commercial job. Now my job is to transfer it to the commercial department so they can take it over. And so you can create these rules that live transfer very, very easily. And you can make as many of them as you like, So it's pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting. It's amazing, actually. So, all right. So we talked about the restorers or
Yeah.
anybody that's like, I don't know about this. So you talked about kicking the tires on it. Let's say somebody decides to go with it, but there's so many options here. Like you're talking about all the different things that you could do with a tool like this. So how do you recommend going from maybe a legacy system or manual processes to phasing in something like this, especially if it's a larger company that doesn't have anything like this in place now?
It's such a good question. In no scenario should you be like going from no AI to now
No.
AI is answering every single message across my organization on the first touch, right? Like that would be a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
It's really about identifying the very narrow use case that's going to add a lot of value in the short
Okay.
term, right? So I'll give you a couple of examples for what that might look like. I am not happy with my answering service. I'd like to maybe explore switching from a live call center to an AI call center, right? So that's a very narrow use case. That's one example. Another example could be, you know what? I just want a backup system during the day. So when my CSR goes on lunch, like she's not stressing out that she misses the call. So we're going to create a backup system during the day. Or I'm going to create a storm surge, AI. So when there's a storm, the AI will pick up and help me qualify all these leads that are sitting in the queue so that instead of a bunch of hangups and I don't even know what I missed, now all of a
Mhm.
sudden I'm picking it up and I have a script that's really dedicated to the storm. I'm collecting information. I'm setting expectations around next steps. If it's super urgent, I can transfer it, right? And now all of a sudden I have visibility into my pipeline. I could prioritize the right deals, so on and so forth. So that was just, off the top of the dome, off the top of my head, I came up with 3 very narrow use cases for how you can start off. And each of those can be very valuable in and of themselves. Now, if one works, you can obviously start layering in others. And then over time, you have a really rich set of playbooks and agents that are supporting your sales efforts and your operational efforts, all integrated into your system. And it's quite nice.
Do you have any examples of companies that it can be in any space that have integrated well with AI where kind of that they've merged, they've maybe met at that intersection of like they've mastered the customer service, like in-person customer service piece, the human to human
Yeah.
touch, I guess, with the AI?
Absolutely. We have a bunch of customers, and I'll give you kind of like a couple of quick examples. We have one customer where they are integrated not just on the voice side, but on chat. So, they got a lot of queries because they do there's a very big difference between a mold job and then like
Yep.
water damage that turns into reconstruction work, right? There's
Yes.
very different workloads that are affected by that. And so they would get a lot of tire kickers on the mold side, asking about price, asking a lot of questions. And obviously on the water side, it was a lot of emergency stuff. So by integrating live chat, right, and different chat modalities, all of a sudden, a lot of the volume on the voice side moves into the chat side. So you got a lot of the mold stuff that's being handled by chat, and then a lot of the water stuff that's being handled by voice. And it creates like a nicer modality for how to deal with these different types of clients. And so all of a sudden, you're handling like 80% of your volume through these different channels that are all coming together. We have other clients who are some using it as a first touch solution. So someone calls in and our AI is the first to respond. So they've gone 100% in the other direction where they said, no, this thing's working well enough where my CSR, I want her to pick up the phone, but I don't want her to waste her time like
Yes.
talking to someone who needs to be transferred or this and that. Like she's got other things to do. So now they've reallocated her time or his time to be, really, really, really focused on the highest value activity. And let's let the AI do like the very mechanical, repetitive tasks over and over again. And we have, examples of everyone in between, like some larger organizations at the franchise level that I'm sure everyone on this podcast would recognize that are using us as an exclusive after-hour call center solution, right? And so there are a ton of use cases where organizations have either gotten really comfortable with using the tool across a whole bunch of different
Mhm.
functions or have gotten really comfortable replacing a really core part of their business with AI.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to start there. It could start in a very low risk, high reward way. And I think those backup calls, those overflow calls are a really good place to start because you're going to lose like 99% of those because you almost assume every time we touch the phone, that's a client you already would have lost. So you're playing with house money at that point, and you're able to test this out in a low risk way. So that's a really good place to begin the experiment, let's call it.
So taking kind of distance out of the equation a little bit, because you've worked in technology so much, for people that are thinking, okay, I want to start using AI more in my business, but there's also so many options out there, so many
Yeah.
platforms, so many people coming at me. How do you recommend they kind of walk themselves through that to figure out what is the good fit for their company? What's maybe a true native AI tool versus something that's kind of, using some different platforms out there and maybe bringing things together in the background? What do you recommend in that area?
Yeah, so a couple of points on this. One is I would understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish with AI. Like, I don't think your checklist should be like use AI with a big checkbox. Like it's kind of like saying the word internet, right? A lot of things can be done on the internet. This is a technology and not necessarily a solution.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we trying to accomplish, and is this the best thing to use to accomplish that solution? So I'll give you an example that has nothing to do with what we've been talking about. Let's say I want to use AI on more the operational side. A lot of CRM solutions are coming out with embedded tools inside their product to make estimating more efficient, right? To make, basically taking the dimensions of a space more efficient, to actually kind of organize teams around projects more efficient, understand gaps in schedules. And a lot of those tools will be baked into your field service management tool.
Mhm.
So, if you're using a field service management tool that is focused on the project, let's make sure that we're taking advantage of the technology that's embedded there to make the project work better. Now, for something like sales, you'll probably want like a sales focused solution since it's such an important part of the equation. So let's find out what native products have that, that capability. Going back to your other point, I think fundamentally it's about understanding, have these organizations worked with, especially if you're talking about a new company or a new organization, have they worked with other restorers? Have they worked with other folks in my category? Are they touching the metal, as I like to call it? Are they building right on top of the LLM technology, or are they using a bunch of third parties? And
Mhm.
that becomes a little bit messy, right? So there are some things that you can do in your due diligence to to basically validate what a good solution would be. The other option is you should definitely, if you're in the restoration space, going to these conferences like the RIA.
Mhm.
There's some really great conferences where a bunch of great vendors are setting up shop, and
Yep.
you'll get to learn a lot in a very short period of time. So there's also that option, which is, all right, like, let me invest a couple of days in a few bucks to go get better and learn. And at the same time, you'll meet folks like us who are going to be all very excited to tell you about what we're doing and whether or not may or may not be a fit. So there's a few different ways that I would kick the tires on it, or at least go about thinking how to use this technology in my business.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Going to shows and talking to that also gives you an opportunity to meet other people in person that might be using these
Oh yeah,
technologies. And then you can
exactly,
talk to them in person and see how other restorers are interacting with them and all of the things. So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's a great plug. Okay, so we've talked a lot about it, like the beginning of the life cycle and customers coming into the funnel. So talk a little bit. We were talking offline about, and you've mentioned it, teased it out a few times,
Yeah.
how AI can play a role more at the end, helping close out, keep that customer touch point going, that it's not ending with that initial, oh, we got them into the system, here we go, then it's turned over to our company. So how can it help through the full cycle?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And when we started Distance, we were really focused on inbound because that's such an important
Yep,
part of the equation.
yep,
You have to start there, right?
yes.
That's but since then we've evolved into outbound. And outbound is really interesting because, to your point, a sale is not done until the money's in the bank, the customer's happy, and there's a 5-star review on the board, right? That's the outcome of a sale. And so, we said to ourselves, all right, well, what does it look like to help achieve that end state? Right? We didn't just close the sale, qualify the lead. We actually had a great end-to-end outcome. So I'll give you a few examples, right? Job is in progress. Wouldn't it be a good idea to send like an automated SMS to the client on a weekly or monthly basis to be like, hey, how's it going? Right? Let's get ahead of issues, right? Let's make sure that your project manager, your client are all on the same page, and we have a direct line into communicating with the client, just as a check-in, just to see how things are going. Let's make sure that that's done automatically. That gets ahead of issues and helps you get that 5-star review.
Yep.
After that job is done, how do we go out and actually solicit the 5-star review, right? If you didn't get it at the door, sending a blast or an email, it's like, thank you for using Acme Corporation. Please leave your review here. I mean, sure, that's better than nothing. But what's better than that is, hey, Michelle, I hope you enjoyed. How was your experience working with Acme, right? Oh, it was good. Fantastic. Would you mind leaving us a review? Here's the link. Like, that is a conversation that you can implement with AI that yields really good results. And so that's another application. How do I use it to help automatically solicit reviews once a job is done? And then my favorite one, which is probably the most important one for folks listening on this podcast, is how do you ensure you get paid, right? If you have an
Yep.
AR balance, and your CSRs or your folks on the team are like struggling to keep up and send follow-ups, like, a lot of that stuff can be automated. Hey, Jim, you got an $11,000 account. It's 30 days overdue. Like, I got a script, I got a flow, and it's automated. I don't have to worry about it when he responds or doesn't respond. I can take specific action, but
Yep.
I've created a process for how I deal with this stuff. And once you set it up, it's kind of set it and forget it, right? Like, I got a process now. I just got to run the process, and implement it instead of feeling like I'm chasing shadows,
Yes.
um, so yeah, I think those are a few different examples of how to use outbound AI,
Hmm.
on the SMS side in particular, which is a really great channel because I can call you and you can not pick up, but I know that if I'm going to send you a message, you're going to get it, right?
Yep.
There's no spam folder. It's like an SMS goes to your phone, and I know it's there. I got a record of it, so it's helpful to use that tool for some of these use cases.
I bet that's coming someday. Spam in your in your
Oh yeah, well, I
messages.
mean, Apple's
But
already trying to do some stuff with that, but yeah,
yeah,
that's certainly also
not
an
yet.
issue. But yeah.
I love the idea of using it kind of as a continuing touch point after. I could see we just recently bought a couch and I got a text like a month later, like, hey Michelle, hope it's going well. Hey, don't forget to rotate those cushions that they're gonna wear better and let me know if you need anything. Nick. It was from I think the manager was Nick at that store. And I could tell that it was definitely like an AI automated thing, but it also made me feel good. And I could see anybody
Oh,
in the service
100%.
lines doing that. Like, hey, you got your new furnace a month ago. Don't forget to replace that filter, you know.
Well, I think there's like this. I think it's a sad state because like that's such good customer experience that
Yeah.
you almost have to assume it's AI because like no one's that good. But there are organizations that actually
There
do like
are.
they do that, right? But I agree with you though. It's such a nice gesture, whether it's AI or not. It's like, oh, you've thought of this part of the journey,
Yeah.
right? And I don't really, as a consumer myself, like, I don't really care if it's AI or not. It's like if you're
No.
delivering the experience and I'm happy and I'm getting what I need, like that's a huge win.
To me, I feel like if that is AI, the company went into their customer experience enough to care enough about the customer to
Exactly.
adopt that kind of technology and get that
Exactly.
embedded in there. And so then the customer must mean something to them because they are caring enough. It's so
Exactly.
hard in today's world with how busy we are and how much technology there is to actually always follow up the way we're supposed to. So
100%. 100%. Well, that's why we're here. That's why we built what we built,
I love it.
to make it easier. Yeah.
All right. Well, Nick, anything else that you want to share? Anything that we haven't talked about before we wrap it up?
No, I think, look, I mean, I'll say one thing, which is I think this is such an important piece of technology. It has such deep seated impact when you implement it in your business. I would just encourage your readers, your listeners to explore it and have an open mind. And see if it's a good fit for their business, whether it's on the sales side or whether it's on the operational side with their CRM. Like there's just a ton of ways. Like a really good framework that I've heard is like, hey, if I have a problem in my business, before I try to solve it the usual way that I solve it, like let me take a step back and say, hey, can I solve it with AI more efficiently? Right?
Mhm.
If you start approaching problems like that, you'll start to find, sometimes the solution is the old way you did it is the right way today. But if you have that framework, what you'll notice is you start to innovate quite a bit, right? You start to experiment a little bit more, and you give yourself that space to, get better and get more efficient.
Absolutely. Perfect. Okay. Well, for everybody who's listening, you can check out distance.so to find out more. Nick and his team, I believe, will be at the RIA in
We will.
Savannah at the end of
Yeah.
April, which is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Nick, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. And I look forward to meeting you in person in Savannah.
Yeah. Likewise. Looking forward to it.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.